Hey Marcus.
What's happening, dude?
Not too much. I feel like I'm like starstruck right now. My hand's sweaty. I can barely hold my phone. This is fucking sick, dude.
Happy to catch up, man.
Yeah, this is awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Like for everybody watching, like I legit just sent Marcus a DM on Instagram being like, "Is this really you?"
Well, yeah,
And
I'm the guy that, I've been on not on every platform, but I just haven't done the Instagram thing. And recently I said, you know what, dude, you got to get off your duff and you gotta get on the gram. And so I'm going to get a little bit more serious about
I
it, a
love
lot more serious about it over the next year. But, I was actually looking at your stuff, man. I'm like, this guy's balling. Get out of here, kid. So
it. Oh, your sound kind of went
yeah,
away.
somebody just called me.
Oh.
My business my business partner clearly is not paying attention to when
Oh
I'm
my
on
God.
live.
Your business partner isn't watching this?
No,
What the
no,
hell?
no.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, this is like Instagram, honestly, is kind of where it's at right now, at least for SEO for me, in terms of, educating and connecting with people. It's been a wild ride. I've only been doing it for like just over a year. And like, first of all, I just want to say you wrote a book about SEO without even really talking about SEO.
That's the big
And
that's the big thing. Somebody came up to me. I spoke one time in Dallas, Texas, and this SEO comes up to me afterwards, and he says, "Dude, that was like the greatest talk I've ever heard on SEO, and you never said the phrase
yeah,
SEO." I'm like, "That's because the moment you say SEO, you separate yourself from a high percentage of your potential customers,
yeah,
right?" Whereas I always talk about like things like getting found online, but I tend to stay away from using phrases that, it's like the classic curse of knowledge, right? And one could easily say everybody in the world knows what SEO is. No, they don't.
no,
There's a million contractors out there that still don't know what the phrase SEO means. Like,
yeah.
SEO, what's that mean? You know what's funny to me, dude? I owned a business for like 12 years before I knew what the acronyms B2B or B2C meant. It wasn't until I started writing about business that I had any clue what B2B or B2C meant at all. Like, what
Yeah,
are these acronyms I'm learning all of a sudden? And so that curse of knowledge is pretty prolific, especially with marketers, really bad.
yeah,
So, this is why I'm really cognizant of it and I'm super careful about it.
yeah. So on that, one of the things that I realized, it took me like I was filming like 2 to 3 videos every single day, reels, like posting them on Instagram. And one of the things like it just clicked after like, and it took me a long time. It took me 300 videos, so like 6 months. One of the things that clicked, I was like, I can't even say the word SEO. I have to say, if you want to show up higher on Google,
There you
because
go.
people understand that.
That's
People
right.
don't understand necessarily SEO, what that stands for. So it's like breaking things down to a level that the masses can understand, which is, the basis of SEO and, communication. If you're a good communicator, you can break down complex topics into easy to understand, sentences. And yeah,
It goes back to the curse of knowledge, and I think the curse of knowledge is in many ways the great divide online with the businesses that can resonate with, let's say, the ignorant buyer, the ignorant consumer. And I don't say that in a negative way.
yeah,
I say that in a very positive way. But the curse of knowledge, for those that aren't familiar with it, it's like you become so familiar with something that you think the whole world understands that thing like you understand
yeah,
that thing, right? And so it's like my mom is in the medical field. If I ask her, "How was your day?" she starts busting out all these acronyms, these medical
yeah.
phrases. And I'm like, "Mom, yo, dumb it down." My
Did the
brother, he's
patient
in,
die? Are they
yeah,
okay?
yeah, right. My brother's in the military, right? He's been in the military for like 20 years. At this point, he can't even speak
Yeah,
English, because everything is an acronym. Curse of knowledge, right? Curse
yeah,
of knowledge. And so I am constantly thinking about, how do I overcome the curse of knowledge right now? How do I say this thing in a way that everyone will understand it versus just the informed group will understand it?
yeah, absolutely. And it's like, I don't say this in like quite the same nice way as you, but like I tell my team this all the time, and this is with like the best intentions. People are stupid.
Yeah,
Not like not every person, but
no.
like generally people are stupid
I'm one
and
of those
not in a,
people.
we all are, right? We're all looking for the answers to the questions, which, is part of the title of your book. They ask, you
Yeah.
answer. And you're just looking for knowledge, and you need, as a marketer, as a business owner, entrepreneur, you need to lead people through the funnel. You need to show them very obviously where you want them to click, what next action you want them to take, and you want to help them. So everything, like, I want to talk a little bit more about SEO with you in a second, like more of like the technical stuff and your journey and all that stuff. But like, if you're not using subheaders in your blog post or on your page, it's going to be harder for people to find information, especially if you're using just like a giant wall of text. Nobody's going to fucking read that, right?
Well,
It's
100%. And I love this topic. It is actually going to be fun, just like speaking about SEO search
yeah,
specifically is exhilarating to me because a lot of things that we did with my swimming pool company early on, man, that's stuff that nobody was doing. I
yeah,
mean, we were and to me, it was like, oh, this is pretty obvious. I think we should be doing this. But we were very aggressively going after stuff that like 10 years later, people finally started to do, and Google started to come out with stuff saying like teaching people, you should talk about these subjects. And I'm like, bro, y'all, I've been talking about this for 10 years, man, for 10 years. But to what you said a second ago, it's the phrase that really struck me early in my career was somebody said, Marcus, it's dumb not to dumb it down. And I
yeah,
said, huh. So many people try to sound smart, whether it's on stage, if you're speaking, or whether it's on a live Instagram live like we're doing right
yeah.
now, or whether it's in a blog post that you're writing. It doesn't matter what it is. It's dumb not to dumb it down. And the
I like
moment you
that.
try to sound smart is the moment you start to look
Yeah,
stupid. And so if you can really just put yourself in the shoes of your audience, and I don't think that's I don't think we speak of that enough. I mean, we talk about it, but man, it's just so stinking powerful. But yeah, let's get into it. I
oh,
love talking that most people don't have the guts to do when it comes to search.
oh, you're still
Yeah,
there?
yeah, I'm
Okay.
here.
I don't know if it's me or you, but either way. So sorry, let's get into, and then it broke up, and then
Yeah,
you
so
said,
let's get into it, man. Let's talk about some search stuff, man. Let's
so
feed your audience.
so I like, this is like kind of selfish for me, because like this is the first time I've actually talked to an author that I've read their book, and it's been really great. I have friends who work in publishing and stuff like that, but like this is, this is fantastic for me. So I'm going to be a little bit selfish and ask you a bunch of questions that I want to know the answers to
Let's do
that
it.
will be relevant to everybody else.
I will
Um,
give frank answers, and nothing is off limits.
Excellent. Excellent. How much money is in your checking account at this exact moment? No, I'm just joking. So, my first question is: are you still involved with River Pool and Spas, which is the company that you started, your SEO journey with?
Yeah, yeah. The very quick story is started in for everybody's listening, very fast, 30-second version. Started it in 2001, started to grow. Crash happens in
Yep.
2008. We do this thing called They Ask You Answer, which we'll talk about. We became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. Traffic lead sales blew up. I started a manufacturing company as well. I started the first franchise of fiberglass
Wow.
pools in the US. We sold the manufacturing side of the business in 2020,
Good for you.
right? So that was a really great
Yep.
exit. And then today, I still own the original river pools in Virginia, which is a decent business. I mean, it does about 150 pools a year. It's a good
Wow.
business still. So yeah, I'm still an owner of that local company, but not the manufacturing company.
Okay. So my next question is: you say about 150 pools a year. What does that equate to in dollars? And I want to relate that back to the amount of traffic the website is getting. And we'll start there.
Yeah. So let's just put it like this: the website alone was worth millions of dollars,
Yep.
and the uh, you know we do about $15 million a year just locally. That
Wow.
doesn't include, like, the website feeds all the other dealers and franchisees that we have as well. So it's the ultimate, like, I mean, it was crazy, man. I was getting so many leads from around the country, and I couldn't do anything with them because we were just in Virginia. That's when I said, we really need to start manufacturing these pools, me and my business partners. And so as soon as we started manufacturing pools, now all of a sudden we said we got to get dealers. But guess what? The dealers came immediately, not because we try to sell them, but we had homeowners from all over the country that were like, I want that river pool, man. I have learned everything I
Yeah.
learned about pools. I learned from those guys. And so I didn't have to go out and try to get salespeople to close to get dealers, because suddenly all these dealers were like, man, this customer I'm working with, they say they got to have a river pool. So how do I sell your
Yeah.
pools? And that's bam. That's just how we took off.
And you're like, just open your checkbook and, I'll send you the leads.
Yeah, there we go.
That's amazing. So in terms of equating to traffic, I just have up here, I'm just going to flip my phone. I have SEMrush open, which I want to talk about tools later that you've used or that you were using in the past. It's like from what I can see here, and obviously it's an estimation, you're getting about 118,000 visitors per month. Is that generally accurate? Do you know the analytics?
Yeah, so how it works in the pool industry, because it's so seasonal, we'll hit somewhere around 500,000 a month during the summertime.
Yep.
And then like in January, it'll be about 20% of that,
Got
right? And so that tends to be the flux. And we've had, a little bit higher, a little bit lower before, right? And but that's usually somewhere between 100,000 and 500,000 is what we're getting per month.
Wow. So based on that traffic alone, you can equate that to sales. It's about $15 million worth of traffic that you're getting to your
Just
website.
one of the dealers. You see,
Yeah.
all the other dealers are being fed from that too. So this is like, this website is feeding way more than what would be, a one $15 million business.
So,
Way more than.
so is it like in the $100 million range of business that you're?
Well, I don't know that. I don't know how. I don't know the gross sales of all the
Yeah.
dealers, but I think it's pretty safe to say that it's probably somewhere between 50 and 150 million dollars. It would just, that's me speculating
Yeah.
without knowing.
So everybody listening, those are fucking crazy numbers. And guess what? It's all from organic. Well, maybe not all, but a lot of it's from organic Google traffic, from writing fucking blog posts.
Yeah, like
Like
95% of our traffic and leads are from organic search.
that's like, okay, so that justifies my entire life, my entire business existence. Like that justifies, because like we've been doing your method, they ask, you answer, for years, and like I never had a name for it. I was like, let's be helpful. Let's like help as many people as possible with doing SEO. And my team here, who like I got my whole team. There's like 10 of us. Everybody should be watching, and if they're not, or if they're not, at least listening. um, but like that's like the philosophy that we do here, and we're being helpful, and it's like it works in 2024. Like our traffic, like for our client websites, in a lot of cases, is doing like a hockey stick. I call it. We're in Canada, so I'm going to call it a hockey stick. But it's like the traffic is going way up. It's the same kind of thing. We're answering all kinds of questions. Like we have a client who does saunas and cold tubs, and some of the questions that we're answering are like, can you bring an Apple Watch into a sauna?
Oh
Like,
yeah, it's unlimited. And now, of course, with AI is an amazing ideation tool, as you know. They do exceptionally well with a lot of those questions, right? And I love to go into AI, and I'll go in and I'll say, let's just say it's hot tubs and saunas. Okay, you're an expert in Marcus Sheridan's. They ask you answer. This is the prompt, by the way. You're an expert in Marcus Sheridan's. They ask you answer methodology. I
yeah,
want you to come up with at least 50 titles to blog articles that are focusing on the big five from his book, specifically cost, problems, comparisons, reviews, and best.
yeah,
And I want you to list these exactly as somebody would search them and exactly as somebody would ask them online, or whatever
yeah.
whatever it is, right? So all of a sudden you're going to get 50 and like pop, 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 and you're just going to get so many good ones right there. It's amazing to me. People say all the time, and I know I don't want to go too far down the AI rabbit hole, but people keep saying to me like, aren't you afraid of AI and how it's going to affect search? I'm like, well, just keep this in mind, or we could talk for an hour about
Yeah.
this, but the stuff that really moves the needle from a traffic perspective that you read and they ask you answer, the big five, especially those five subjects.
Yeah.
Most companies
Hmm.
The problem is, it's like, we know that people are prolifically searching about cost and price. Every industry, B2B,
Yeah.
B2C, it doesn't matter. They're searching for cost and price of your products, of your services, etc. Anybody with a half a wit from a search perspective is going to be talking about cost and price on their website.
Yeah.
Most companies don't talk about cost and price on their website, especially if they're a B2B service-based business, because they're like,
Yeah.
I can't do that. Which is, as a fiberglass pool manufacturer, we were talking about cost and price, and we weren't setting the end price, but you can talk about it all day long, and
Yeah.
crushed. We crushed. I wrote an article on how much does a fiberglass pool cost.
Yeah.
This thing, just for my company in Virginia, has made $35 million in sales that I've tracked back to that one article on how much does a fiberglass pool cost.
Wow.
35 million. One
That's
article.
okay. Yeah.
Talk
So
about ROI. That thing took me about 30 minutes to write. So if you do the math, it's like $1,050,000 per minute of ROI.
that's fucking insane. So like that just goes back to like what I'm like, and this is something that I talk about almost every single day on social media with my team, just in general. Like, write content. Like, you need to write content and you don't know what's going to pop off, right? Like, it could take you 20 minutes. Like, the videos that I've done, just talking about video for a sec on Instagram or TikTok, like the videos that I've done the best are the ones I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. Just flip on the camera, start recording, film my screen, do whatever. And those videos, like some of those videos have like 3-4 million views. And I'm like, fuck, the video that I spent so long doing like has, maybe 20,000 views. That's still a lot. That's a lot of people. But it's not those millions, right? And you never know what's going to pop off or not. So answer questions. You don't know what's going to be the one thing that tips the scale, the tipping point, or whatever you want to call it, to completely transforming your business. So with that being said, I was very nervous to do this because I'm like my hands sweaty, all this kind of stuff. So I actually like wrote out questions to make sure because I'm like I want to know a bunch of shit from this guy because like you're doing it. You're doing what I tell people to do every single day. So and these are questions that I get asked all the time. You
Okay.
started doing SEO. We'll call it doing SEO,
Mm-hmm.
writing blog posts in what, 2009? Or sorry,
2009. That's exactly
2009.
right. March of 2009, I published my first blog post.
Okay, so that's about 15 years later,
Yeah.
right? Like 15 years ago. Um, and obviously SEO has changed. Google updates their algorithm, all this kind of stuff. But you're still doing the same thing. Like you run an agency
Yes.
now called Inbound,
Impact.
and you're
Impact. Yes.
Impact. Sorry, I
That's
have
right.
that actually written down, and I can't read Impact. You have an agency called Impact, and are you still doing that same methodology?
Yeah, just exactly like you would read in the book. I mean, the book has sold so many copies now that companies all over the world read it, and then they reach out and they're like, I want to do this whole day ask you answer thing. It seems so obvious. It makes so much sense. Why are we not doing this? Right? And
Yeah,
like, yeah, I agree. Why are you not? And so we help them do it. The problem is, as you know, Matt, it's like a lot of people just when it comes push comes to shove, they start to get nervous,
yeah,
right? So let me give you a perfect example, not to get off track of your questions. Like, I remember the first time I started openly talking about our competitors on our website.
yeah.
Man, my business partners freaked out, man. They're like, what are you doing, man? I wrote this article. I got so many crazy stories I could tell you. I remember thinking one time, I was like, let me go with the manufacturers for a
Yeah,
second. So at one time I was just a dealer, right? And I was selling a manufacturer's shell. This was before I was my own manufacturer.
yeah,
And so I said to myself, I went by one of those car magazines one day, and it said like, car of the year or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I bet I could do that for swimming pools. And so in like, I guess it was like 2010, the first time I did this, or 11, I said, all right, I'm going to come up with an article, and it's like uh, the Fiberglass Pool Design Awards for 2011, I guess it was the year. And
yeah,
I gave awards to companies I was competing
yeah,
against. like best kidney shaped pool, best rectangle shaped pool, best diving pool. And so look at it like this. I was like a Chevrolet dealer, and I was giving awards out to Ford corporate, to Toyota
Yeah.
corporate, all that stuff, right? To make an analogy. And what was crazy is I started getting all this traction from this, like everybody's like reading these articles, of course, all these consumers, and the manufacturers. First, they were pissed. They're like, "Who's this snot-nosed kid? Like, what is he doing making up awards for our industry? What gives him the right to do this?" And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what gives me the right? The internet gave me the right,
Yeah.
right? And then suddenly I had manufacturers call me and saying, "Hey, I see you didn't put us on your award for best shape or best whatever. Why don't you take a trip on out to the factory? We'll fly you out here, and we'd like to show you our stuff."
That's
And so
sick.
suddenly, I didn't know it at the time, but I was like, I was becoming an influencer, right? And it was like by 2012, I was getting. I remember I got a call from this lady that was like in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
And she reaches out. She says, "Marcus, everything I learned about fiberglass pools, I've learned from you. And I don't trust my pool builder. Can you come out to the Virgin Islands and oversee my project?" And of course, I'm thinking, is this real? Is the internet real? I
Yeah.
love this thing called the internet. And then I remember thinking to myself, I could go out there, I get a free trip, I get paid, but the problem is she might find out that I don't know jack about how to even turn on the equipment. Like, I couldn't even turn on the equipment. I couldn't shoot a grade. I couldn't dig a hole. I couldn't do
Yeah.
anything. But the one thing I can do is I can listen well, and I can communicate really, really plainly for the world to
Yes.
understand. And so that's what I was doing with these articles. People thought I was a swimming pool expert. In reality, what I could do is I could talk to people on my team, and I could translate the words in a way the world would understand. But I ended up becoming the premier influencer. The first influencer in the world for any type of in-ground swimming pool was me, and I didn't know jack about how to install a pool myself.
That's that's absolutely amazing. So let me ask, did you go on the trip?
No, no, I didn't want to be exposed, man.
She just writes a bad review online. This guy has no idea what the fuck he's doing.
No, I would love to. I'm just too busy here, but you can reach out with any questions. I'm going to be cheering you on from Virginia, right? That's what it was.
I love that. That's so amazing. Okay, so we talked about writing content. That's what you did 15 years later or 15 years ago. That's what you're still doing now. You're doing the exact same methodology. Um, Back when you first started, and even up till now, what were you using, or were you using any like keyword
Yeah,
research tools, or were you just coming up with, because AI didn't exist. AI's barely existed for a
right.
minute now. But like how like what were you doing? Like, were you paying like thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars for tools, for SEO, keyword research?
Man, I couldn't afford to pay attention at the time. So what I was doing is I was just obsessed with the questions that I was hearing every single day. I would go on and literally it was like this, my man. I was selling pools at the time. I'd go into a house, they would ask me a question, and the first thought I had was, have I written about that on the website yet? And if
Yeah,
the answer was no, I would, as soon as I was done that appointment, I was like scribbling notes. They asked me this, they asked me this. And it got to a point where I was just I was like, my goal in life was I want every single question I hear in a sales appointment already answered well on my
yeah,
website, through text, through video. And eventually, of course, that branched out to social and
yeah.
whatnot. But that's where it started on the website. I've always
So
said the
sorry,
best.
I want to stop you there for 1 second because I wrote an article. I actually had somebody write an article. I would get this question all the time. How do you add users to a Facebook or a Meta business profile?
Mm.
How do you give those permissions? I would get that all day, every fucking day from clients, from whoever. So we wrote a blog post, and it's like one of our top blog posts that is exactly that. It answers that question. There's screenshots. It shows people how to do that. No keyword research was done. Like none of that, just straight up information. And this is before I even knew about your book, and like that just reaffirmed everything. I was like,
Yeah,
holy shit, this guy knows what he's
yeah.
talking
If you
about.
if you hear it, like I say to salespeople, I say to people all the time, I'm like, do you ever get tired of answering the exact same questions
Yeah,
over and over again? It's
yeah,
like, just if you're getting redundant questions all the time, it's your own fault because you haven't addressed it well
Yeah.
on your generally on your website, right? And so, yeah, that's that. So I say the greatest keyword tool, and I still believe this to this day, is your own ears,
Yeah.
and really, really getting to know, listen to what the market is asking you, what your potential customers are asking you. You know, when I see marketers, and this is of course before AI, and I still believe this, when
Yeah.
marketers say, I'm just not sure what to write about, I'm like, you ain't been sitting with a sales team recently, have you?
Yeah.
Because if you sit with your sales team for one day and listen to every conversation they have, you're going to have ideas for the next like 6 months.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's interesting to me. And so, you know, that was number one. I was using Answer the Public really early on, right? Just like the general like Google, like typical Google suggestion, like
Yeah.
box. I just love to this day. I get a thrill out of going to Google and typing in a keyword and then adding like a couple of words to it, or maybe a verses, or maybe a for, whatever the thing is, and watching what it fills in as a suggestion,
Yeah.
and just watching the way consumers think and the way they search. And it's always fascinating to me to this day, and I just love that activity. It's never grown old. It's like playing Zelda back in the day, man. It's
Oh
just
my God.
still fun, you
Yeah.
know.
So how do you feel about the phrase? And I think this really relates to, your methodology to ask you answer. It like I think it's something like 15% of all Google searches on a daily basis are brand new. They've
Yeah, it's
never been searched before,
pretty wild.
right?
Yeah.
That's wild. So if you're answering questions that you're hearing all the time and nobody else is talking about it without even doing keyword research, you could be hitting that 15% of searches that have never even happened that in the world,
Yeah,
right?
you just have to. I think the word is intentional. You got to be
Yeah.
intentional. It's kind of like, lots of times I forget what it's called when you're not thinking about something, but as soon as you like become interested in a particular car, suddenly you start seeing that car all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
right? There's a name for that law. But the point is, it's the same thing when you start looking, really listening for questions, worries, issues, fears that your potential customers have. You're just flooded with ideas. You
Yeah.
constantly flooded with ideas. But if your brain
100%.
ain't on, you're not going to do it. And so, you should never run out of great content ideas if you're truly engaging with the prospect, with the customer, and having conversations with them. You should never run out, man.
Absolutely. So we're talking a lot about content right now. I want to talk about frequency and, how often you are blogging, how often you're writing blogs. And I know this is 15 years ago, a lot's changed, but what were you doing then? What do you recommend doing now? For me personally, I say 2 blog posts a week at minimum. That's like for my agency, that's our minimum package. We do 2 blog posts per week. Like the most complete information you could find about that topic on the internet is what we're writing twice a week for each client, right? What were you doing back then? What are you doing now? Like, let me know.
Yeah, they the great thing about they ask you answer, and I say this, and it might sound vain, but it's just I just believe it's true. They ask you answer is the most long-term evergreen SEO strategy ever designed, right?
Yes.
Because it has withstood every single Google update, algorithm, etc. I mean, since the beginning of Google's time, its goal has been to give the best, most specific, relevant answer to the question as quickly as possible. That's what every update has been
Yes.
designed for that. And so if you say, okay, my goal is to give the best, most specific, relevant answer to the question as often as possible, well, then you're cooking with gas. Now,
Yeah.
how often is this? Well, I would say that with our clients today, we set the minimum bar of 2 pieces of content per week, but we like to hit 3 if we can, right? The difference with us is we don't actually produce any content for anybody. Every single one of our clients has an in-house content
Love
person. Usually they
it.
end up like hiring them, and we just guide them in the process. And they have a person that's dedicated to it, which, as you know, is a big deal if they have someone that's
Yeah.
purely dedicated to that. My general sense, and we say typically between 12 and 1,500 words is where we like it
Yeah.
to be, but we don't complain if it's longer than that. I don't really want it to be
Yeah.
shorter than that,
Yeah.
generally that's our modus operandi at this point. And we still see just stunning increases in traffic when people start to get the quantity and the quality. I always hated that conversation about quantity versus quality, because the reality is when it comes to search, they both freaking matter, dude.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? They both matter a lot.
100%. So with the quality versus or quality versus quantity conversation, um, just talking about like the quality of the of a piece of content. So obviously you need to be answering questions, right? And we'll get to this question in a sec. But people ask me like, how can I answer one question, in 1,000 to 1,200, 1,500 words? You know what I mean? Like that's way too many words to answer that question. We'll get to that in a second, but in terms of the quality, when it comes to the technical SEO stuff, like the heading tags, the meta description, the title tag, including images, video, all that kind of stuff, and internal linking, like, was that something you were aware of at the time? Is that something that, you were doing?
Well, I quickly became pretty freaking good at just titles in general for search and
Yep,
subtitles, subheaders
yep,
on the page, and just like that's one thing that what happens all the time is I see people that'll read the book and then they will say, "Hey, Marcus, I wrote this article on it," and I'll look at it and I'm like, "It's okay, man, but it's just sloppy, especially from a technical standpoint when it comes to the way that you're doing your titles, or
yep,
the way that you're, any, you got to spend a little bit of time just to make those things right." Let me give you an example. I mentioned earlier that article that I've written a bunch of stuff about competitors, and I was like the first that I know that was teaching about this. I
yep,
used to get asked the question all the time when I was just a pool guy selling pools in Virginia. Let's say I was in Richmond, Virginia. Somebody would say to me, "Marcus, we like you. We want to do business with you. But if we don't do business with you, is there anybody else you might recommend?" Right? Essentially, what they're saying there is, who are the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia? That's
yep,
what they're saying.
yep,
And I know that's what they're searching. And one time I met with a couple for like 2.5 hours, and at the end they said that exact same thing to me. And I said to myself, son of a gun, they're still searching. And so it meant that I wasn't going to sell the pool that night. I had a long drive home, and I thought to myself, well, they asked the question, which means I need to answer it. So I went home that night and I said, I wrote an article, and the article was, who are the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia? And then parentheses, reviews slash ratings. Now, any SEO would look at that and say, aha, I see what you
yeah,
did there. But a lot of people aren't thinking about that, because what I did is I listed my top 5 competitors and I gave an explanation of each one.
yeah,
And now my primary phrase that I was targeting, of course, was best pool builders, Richmond, Virginia. But the secondary phrases that I was now targeting was reviews, name of company, Richmond, Virginia, of which there were 5 of those. And
yeah,
so suddenly now, when people were going online and they were searching my competitors, literally, they were searching for reviews on my competitors. They were showing up to my website and learning about my competitors from me on my website, which is glorious, glorious. Everybody thought it was my 2 business partners like, you wrote an article that talked about the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia, and you listed 5 of our competitors. I'm like, yeah, pretty cool.
and we're not on the list.
They're like, yeah, I didn't even put myself on the list, right? I'm like, because that sounds self-serving. Single article right there became a cash cow. I mean, the first year we put it out there, we made over $250,000 in business. You know what's so funny, dude? I've gone to like conferences, and these pool builders will come up to me and they're like, Marcus, man, I don't know why you put us on that list, but thank you. And I'm thinking, no, thank you. But
Yeah,
I don't tell them that, right? But that's what I'm thinking, because I'm drafting off of really what is their brand, so in their existing traffic on the web, and I'm drafting like a race car, capturing so much of that traffic. To this day, most companies are afraid to death to talk about the competition. Now, I'm not espousing that you say anything
yep,
negative, but we aggressively talk about competition, comparison articles, best articles on all things competition without saying anything negative, no
yep.
speculation, stuff like that. And man, dude, you want to talk about crushing? That is a cash cow from a search standpoint.
Yeah. That's actually insane. That like after reading They Ask You Answer, which is Marcus's book for anybody just joining, it's probably the best book I've ever read about SEO. And like, I'm just gonna like, there's not a lot of SEO books out there. There are, but there aren't. It's an SEO book that is about SEO, but you never even really mention SEO in there, and it's really great. Um, so one of my questions is, and I may be just like jumping around a bunch here
That's
because everything's rattling in my
good.
brain.
You can tell by the way that I think I'm all over the place, man. I'm a disaster.
So I see some comments coming in where people are like, I'm my entire marketing department.
Yeah.
Like I'm a solopreneur. It's just me, like how do people manage to get time to do this? Like how long should you be spending writing blog posts on your website? And like when are you going to see results? Like when am I going to see the fruits of my labor? Right? Like
Well,
what?
I'm going to say something that's not going to earn me any fans, but I believe in frankness and
Yeah.
honesty. When I did the Ask You Answer and started in in my case, March of 2009, I was working, and you can ask, my wife would tell you, about 60 hours a week at the time. And I remember going to her and I said, honey, I got to do this thing. I got to save the business. But in order to do that, I can't go to bed at the same time you go to bed
Yeah.
anymore. And so for 2 straight years, I
Wow.
would sit down at my kitchen table right around 10:30 after everybody, because I had 4 kids, in the home at the
Yeah.
time, around 10:30 at night, and I would work until 12:30, 1 in the morning, writing articles myself for 2 straight years,
Wow. And,
every night.
and
And my wife,
that's without AI.
oh, I had no AI, no AI. In fact, when I started, if you look at some of my really early stuff, I wasn't a good writer. Now I became a good writer. I was always a good communicator, a good speaker. I became a pretty solid like writer that people
Yeah.
enjoy to read because the style is easy to read. But the point is, I got to share this. My wife says to this day, she can look back and she can hear the sounds of the keys in the kitchen hitting the keyboard. And
Wow.
it would bring her comfort knowing that I was doing something that could save our business.
Wow. I just got the
So,
chills.
yeah, it's wild, right?
Whoa.
I did. I just sat there every night, just tapped away. And she says it's such a soothing feeling today when she thinks about the sound of the keys, because we were in incredible debt. We were going to go file bankruptcy. We were going to lose our home. And that's why, like literally, SEO saved my home. It saved the jobs of all my employees, made me a millionaire. It's just completely changed my life. All because I said, okay, we're going to answer all the questions that our customers have. We're going to do it on our website. We're going to do it consistently every single
Yeah.
day. Like now, this is also the why I don't have I have empathy, but I also like, guys, I did this at 10:30 at night. I slept like 5 hours a night. Like I wish there was an easy
Yeah.
way. I don't think there's an easy way, right? But that's what I did. That's what I did because I had to. I didn't have a choice because I was going
Yeah.
to lose my home. So lots of times we say we don't have the time, but in reality, we just don't have the pain.
Yeah. So I want to talk about work-life balance and, the culture that's happening now in the last like 5, 10 years, whatever. But I want to, oh my God, did I lose my question? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not a proponent of hustle culture. Like as a business owner, I fucking hustle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There were years where like I didn't take a day off, and like my wife, I like bless her, we just started dating, and it'd be like 11:30 at night. I was at her apartment with her roommate there, and I would get a call from a client. So I'd have to go outside and take that call. And like working, 12, 14-hour days, and I'm not doing that anymore, but like you have to hustle if you want to get somewhere quicker. You know what I mean?
You look,
Like you probably
I mean,
have,
here's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. The people in our world that have done the most extraordinary things had an unhealthy obsession with it for at least a period of
yeah,
time. And listen, I want you to be a great human, a great family member, but I also think there's magic to different seasons of life.
Yeah.
And there was a season of my life when I was just, man, I was burning on both ends. And I don't want to go back, but
Yeah.
it was glorious in what it was able to achieve.
Isn't it?
And I never would have achieved what I achieved without it. And
Yeah.
so I actually, people talk about the hustle culture. I'm like, eh, it's one of those things where here's the thing. Here's the thing. We all have a choice as to what we consume.
Yeah.
If you want to watch Alex Hormozy, enjoy him.
Yeah.
If you don't. But he is not the problem.
Yeah.
He is not the problem. And hustling is not the problem. It's the way people decide to consume
Yep.
content and how they allow that to affect their general mood. That is the problem,
Yep.
right? But hustle culture in and of itself isn't the problem. Because sometimes, truth be told, I need to listen to Gary Vee to get my teeth kicked in.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't feel like listening to Gary, right? It just depends. And that's
Yeah.
fine. That's a good thing, right? And that's just where I stand on that matter. We still have our agency, right? We got our
Yeah.
choices.
Absolutely. So, it's funny you mentioned Alex Hormozy and Gary Vee. Like, I obviously have listened to their books and, follow them online, all that kind of stuff. But two books inspired me to really get off my ass because like I was kind of in like a low point with my business. We were like gaining a client and then we'd lose a client. It was kind
Yeah.
of stagnant for a couple of years. It was still growing slightly, but it was kind of just like, I wasn't really, it was kind of like in like, the highs and lows of an entrepreneur of running your own business. Like I was in a very low for like, a good while. And so I was like, I'm gonna immerse myself. I'm gonna listen to a bunch of books. I'm gonna get ideas. I need to grow my business. It's all referral at this point. I don't know what to do. So I listen to all these books and I listened to one of Gary Vee's books. And I say listen because like I can't fucking retain anything if I actually read on paper. But like for some reason, if I hear it, I can, retain, like I could tell you everything about it. Maybe not everything. That sounded like a very, not everything, but anyways. So the one book, the Gary Vee book, I think it was like Jab, Jab, Right Hook or something like that. Oh, you still there?
Yeah, good.
So yeah, sorry, Jab, Jab, Right Hook, by Gary Vee, and that's all about like post content, don't sell like as much as possible, and then like jab them with the right hook, and then you sell. And then the other book that I read was The One Thing. I forgot who the author is, but
Yeah, it's a good
have
one.
you read The One Thing? Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good one.
it's like that day when I finished reading that book, I actually think I was halfway through it. If you go back like 600 videos, like just over a year ago, you can see me making my first video being it's a message really to myself in the future. Start making content every single day. Get off your ass. I don't care what you're doing. If you're cooking dinner, if you're playing with the dogs, or if you're like hanging out, start making content. And I really think like that was for me. That was a message for me. Nobody really saw it. Um, but that's really what motivated me to get started on Instagram and like it completely changed my life. Like,
Moments of disgust are really great
yeah,
because that's the moment we say, you know what? I'm sick and tired of this. It's like I had some serious moments of disgust early on, when I was almost filing bankruptcy. And my wife and we defined financial peace as this: that she could go to the grocery store and not have to look at the prices on the food.
yeah,
That was our singular goal. We didn't want to buy anything. It wasn't about vehicles or boats or anything like that. The singular goal for us to define financial peace in our family was, I just don't want to have to look at the prices at the grocery store, because she got anxiety and got sick every time she'd have to go grocery
yeah.
shopping back in the day. Some of you watching this right now can relate to it, especially with what's happened with inflation and the pricing of food recently, right?
Crazy. Yeah,
So that's why, I think there's seasons of life, and it's amazing. I'll go back to the phrase, we oftentimes overestimate what we can do in a year, but underestimate what we can do in 10 years.
yep,
It was when I was, it was when I started essentially really doing this hardcore 2009, 10. I had never made more than six figures in my life. And I had owned a business for 10 years. I had never made more than $100,000,
Yeah.
and 10 years later, it's like multimillionaire stuff, whatever. Like, that's what it was. I was just answering my customers' questions. I
Yeah.
was doing it pretty prolifically on my website. But it's like, look at you. You did 600 pieces of content over the course of a year. That's gangster, man. That's balling. I mean, that is obsession. That's
Yeah.
an unhealthy, most people would call that's an unhealthy obsession, bro.
Yeah.
But you did it, and it is paying some serious dividends. And now the world's benefiting from your expertise. You get a big following, right? To change your business.
Yeah.
That's winning, man. That's great. That's a season of life right there. You might not do 600 again next year, but you did it during a season of life when you needed it, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. That's I love that. That's really nice. It's nice to hear, and it's also nice to see, the fruits of the labor coming back. I remember talking to my brother, and you probably had conversations like this when you were in that like hustle grind, 2 years writing those blog posts where my brother was like, "What are you doing on Instagram? You have 1,500 followers. You've posted like 300 videos. Like, are you getting paid for that?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, he just didn't get it. He's like, what are you doing it for then? Like, why are you making these, like, why are you spending so much time on this shit? You're posting three videos a day. Don't you have a job to do? And I like, now when I talk to him, like, it's paying dividends. Like, all that time I put in, I'm now getting paid
That's
back
right.
for, and then some.
That's what's called the law of the harvest. And if you think about the law of the harvest, most people aren't willing to be the farmer that will plant the, prepare the field, plant the seed, nourish the seed, take care of the crop, and then reap the harvest. You've
Yeah.
been in the process over the last year, 600 videos, literally living a modern day law of the harvest. But most
Yeah.
people just want to get to the point where they're at 600 videos and enjoying the fruit of that labor. Whereas you got to experience the journey. And oh, by the way, the journey is where you get all the growth from. I mean, just for me personally, it's like the idea that I would become someone that people would say, man, you're a really good
Yeah.
writer. When I started this blog stuff, man, I was junk, man. I stank. Same thing with like on video, wasn't very good and didn't have obviously like everybody, you struggle.
Yeah.
But then you just like embrace the messy, embrace the clunky that comes with this. And of course that's what I did. And then suddenly you just push through the other side. And so much of our career, it's like we got this snowball rolling it up the hill and it's like
Yeah.
heavy. It was like pushing it up. It's like the whole thing. And then finally one day, and SEO works a lot like this, and social works a lot like this. That snowball will crest the hill, and as soon as it starts to crest the hill, you just give it a push, and then it starts to go faster than you
Yeah.
can go. And you're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, and it starts to grow faster than you ever imagined it would grow. And of course, that's what's happened with a lot of your videos, Matt. It's like, getting like millions here
Yeah.
and there. It's like, yeah, I just a dude in Canada. I'm just a happy guy, just ready to talk about some SEO.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. Yeah, and that's a great analogy. I love the what did you call it? The something of the harvest?
It's the law of the harvest.
Law of the harvest. I love that. I've never heard that in anything I've read or listened to, or that's great. Law of the harvest. And that is SEO. You are planting a
That's
million
it.
seeds,
That's it.
hundreds of seeds, whatever, and some of them will grow, some of them
That's
won't.
right. And you don't know what's going to hit, to your point. In social, you don't know what's going to hit. In search, you don't know what's going to hit. I mean, I swear, for the longest time, I had the most traffic swimming pool website in the world, and I couldn't rank number one for fiberglass pools, the word fiberglass. And I was like, how is this possible? What is wrong with this?
Yeah.
And look, I eventually it's like, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. Just keep doing your thing, Marcus. Sometimes the seeds hit and they grow big. And sometimes they just, for whatever reason, they fall by the
Yeah.
wayside and they don't take root. That's how it goes. You just got to keep doing your thing, Marcus. And so, yeah,
I
that's the
love
law of the
that.
heart.
So I originally scheduled us for 45 minutes. We're about 4 minutes over now, and I appreciate your time so much. Like, I have one last question for you before we go, but I did want to thank you and like really like this was really great for me. This is the first time I've actually chatted with an author that I've read who I've like really enjoyed their book. Not that I've talked to other authors I didn't enjoy their books, but like this is really great. I feel like for me this is and like just full transparency, candor, whatever, like I feel like this is like a step for me as like a business owner, as a person making videos on the internet, as somebody who does SEO. Like, thank you for, you know, just chatting. This is fucking awesome.
Yeah, well,
Like, I
what's
appreciate it.
cool is I just got on Instagram. For those that are watching, I just got on the gram. I need to stop sucking on it, so I'm gonna start to do a lot of videos on it. So you'll be able to check that out. And like Matt was really the first person that I think has ever messaged me on Instagram, and I like messaged him back today. And he's like, "Hey, why don't you come on my show, do a live sometime?" And I'm like, "I've never done that before. Hey, let's play ball." And so it's like you don't have to like have months of prep. Sometimes you just got to be in the right place at the right time. And because Matt has just been just constantly putting himself in a position to allow just like the universe to work in his favor,
Yeah.
that he's making his own luck, and that's an example to all of us. And do your example to me. I'm grateful to be on here. It's like, this is fun. I'm like, okay, this Instagram, I think I can handle this.
Yeah, no, that's fucking amazing. I love that. So okay, so my last question, after you answer it, we can hang up and all that kind of stuff. But what are other books or authors you recommend that I should read? I don't care about everybody else watching. This is purely selfish. The like business books, like I'm not like a non or a fiction guy. Nonfiction, like what are your top like couple books?
Well, I think that, at the sake of like saying things that people have probably heard before, I would say that the biggest impact any business book has had on me came from Good to Great by Jim
Yeah,
Collins. And it's just absolutely magical. Jim Collins talks about having a hedgehog concept. Hedgehogs, they're unique animals. They don't do a lot very well, not very talented. But the one thing a hedgehog does is when it gets attacked, it wraps up into a ball. It's got these spikes and it
yeah,
survives. And so that's its head. So when you talk about a hedgehog concept in business, it's like, what can you be the best in the world at? Like the
yeah,
hedgehog. And so for me, early on with my business, I was doing all these different things, and eventually I said, I got to stop doing all these things. I'm just going to sell fiberglass pools. That's going to be
yeah,
our hedgehog concept. And then I said, with our marketing, I'm not going to do all these things. I'm just going to produce great content, and I'm going to put on our website through text and video. And that became our
yeah.
hedgehog concept, right? It's so like your hedgehogs evolve over time, but that for me was a game changer. Of course, How to Win Friends, Influence People, still one of the greatest books ever written.
Yeah.
Anything that Jim Rohn has ever said, not so much on his books, but in his talks on, like, if you get a chance to listen to Jim Rohn, Rohn, on YouTube, he'll change your life.
Wow,
You'll love him. So those are the ones that I would say that you should
that's
consider.
amazing. And thank you. I see a lot of people asking, what is the name of Marcus's book? It's called They Ask, You Answer. Are you working on anything else right now, Marcus?
Yeah, I got a couple coming out. They Ask You Answer, the third
Okay.
edition will be coming out later this year. And I've got a book on really what is transformative leadership communication.
Love it.
And it's going to be coming out probably at the beginning of next year. And I think it'll do at least 1 million copies. I think it's going to be a stinking home run.
Fuck
I
yeah.
think it'll change the world. I'm so excited about it. And I just have a deep passion for communication that moves, that inspires. And I love teaching about communication. A lot of people just think he's just a sales and marketing guy, but at my core, I'm a guy that teaches people how to connect with the words and the way they communicate.
I love that so much. Well, thank you so much, Marcus. I could talk to you for probably the rest of the day, but we're gonna we're gonna cut this off now. Are you? I just sorry. Last question. Are you okay if I re-upload this in different clips and post it
Send
on the
it,
internet?
brother.
Yeah.
Send it to the world. Send it to your grandma. You know what I'm saying? Like let's do it. Thanks everybody for
Awesome.
watching. And Matt, you're a good soul. This was great energy, and I appreciate you bringing it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marcus. Appreciate you. Cheers.